Avenue Baptist Church pastor, Nolan Rumble.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, sovereign Lord, creator of the universe, pause to give you thanks for this day. God, you're the source of every good and perfect gift, and this day is a gift. It's a blessing. Your Bible says that your mercies are new every morning. The fact that we are alive, that we can breathe, that we have health, God, this and many more are provided by you and you alone. So we honor you, we recognize you, that we are one nation under you. You are the ruler of this entire world, even the universe. And so, Father, I pray for your blessings on these men and women today that have been set in these positions of authority. God, to discern and to have wisdom, to make decisions for this county, for this city. Lord, I pray that you grant them wisdom. I pray that you also bless them with unity. And help us to know that apart from you, we can do absolutely nothing good. So I pray for you to help them, to guide them, and to remind them that they are stewards of everything that is given to them, and that they honor you in all of their decisions, because we all will be held accountable to you ultimately in the end. So bless them, God, with your wisdom and mercy, and help every decision be made for the good of this city and this county, and ultimately for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Pastor. Madam, would you call the roll?
Epperson.
Here.
Hughes.
Here.
Alford.
Here.
Fry.
Here.
Blake. Mull.
Here.
Peak. Here. Thompson.
Here.
Goins.
Here.
Slater. Here. Mason.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Rayford.
Here.
Winters.
Here.
13 present and 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam. Can I entertain a motion for approval of minutes? Got a motion by Commissioner Thompson, second by Commissioner Goins. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Epperson.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Fry.
Yes.
Mull.
Yes.
Peak. Yes. Thompson.
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Rayford.
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam. Former County Mayor, you have anything for me?
I do. I want to speak briefly, if I can, about an item on the agenda, item F, which will be discussed later potentially. Have some information from the mayor's office that I think is timely. We'd like for you to consider an alternative way to go after this money. I want to make a few things clear, not just for you all, but for the public as well. Number one, this is our money, okay? We're going to get this money. And so what I'm about to share with you is it shouldn't be misconstrued to think that the mayor's office is against doing anything when it comes to water or sewer, okay? This is ours for the taking. What I'm going to discuss and talk about briefly is just a matter of how we apply for it and how we get the funding, okay? A few things that I want to point out. I think everyone's aware we are looking at $7.5 million from TDEC, okay? And this money can only be used for water, sewer, and stormwater projects, right? So as we talk about septic repair, septic replacement, none of this money that's coming from the state can be used for that. We have a water bucket, $3 million. We have a sewer bucket, $3.9 million. Those funds can be used later when we discuss septic, but just so that everyone's clear, especially folks in the public, we've gotten a lot of questions in the last week in our office, and maybe you have too. The money that you're discussing on today's agenda, this application, the TDEC funds, the $7.5 million, none of it, not a single dime, can be used towards septic tank repair or replacement, okay? In the last couple of weeks, we have met with each of the 3 major utility companies that we anticipate partnering with when it comes to these funds. We have met with Hiwassee, Cleveland, and Ecoa Utilities, and have had some pretty in-depth conversations about what they hope to achieve with this money, the projects that they already have engineered and ready should they receive funding from this grant. And so our next step would really be to look at finding what we think is a more efficient and practical way to go after this money. We have to bid out the entire process. And what I mean by that is the application process, the administration of the grant, as well as the reporting of the grant. We're talking about a 4-year process, okay? So item F really just addresses one piece of that. And as we've also talked to the development district this week, they've already agreed that they would handle the entire process for us, similar to the way they handle CBDG grants, by doing it from start to finish, okay? At a max, how much is it going to cost? A max of 3% of the grant. Now, again, I reference the fact that this is 4 years. So if you do the math on $7.5 million, you're, like I did when I heard that, that's $225,000 versus $35,000 that you're looking at today. Keep in mind that $35,000 only gets us through the application step. We still have 4 years to administer and report on the grant, okay? We've already discussed potential projects with Hiawassee. They have a 40-year-old plant, and they are looking to use this money to invest in upgrades to their existing facility to increase efficiency on their end. Cleveland Utilities, we've had the discussion, sewer versus water. To be perfectly honest, it's important that I think everybody understands we move on from the discussion about whether or not we can do sewer with Cleveland Utilities. There's an ordinance in place, and we do not have the time to play political pickleball for the next 5 months and miss the opportunity to get this money. All right, Cleveland Utilities is more than happy to discuss projects extending water lines, and we have projects that they have engineered and ready as well. The final company, COA Utilities, is the only one that we've talked with about partnering to do sewer projects, and they would extend sewer lines with the project that they're taking a look at. One of the important things too is we've talked to all 3 of these. First of all, with the COA, this is important for the public. There will be no requirement to tap into sewer if it is run down your street, okay? You will not be forced to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to tap into sewer if a project like this with the COA Utilities is brought down your street. All 3 utility companies have agreed to pay their portion of the co-funding or the match, right? If you remember, we have $7.5 million with a 25% co-funding amount, which really makes it closer to $9.4 million, right? They have agreed to pay their portion. So for whatever percentage of the funds they get, they would pay the 25%. Does that make sense? We had talked at one point, I know the commission had discussed, and it is okay for us to pay that match out of our ARP funds. We will not have to do that by partnering with these organizations. They understand and are willing to bring that money to the table themselves. So what would the process look like? Again, I don't also want you to think that we're against the engineering company. They did a fantastic job. And I think at some point down the road when we discuss septic, they will more than likely be someone or someone like them that we need back at the table to help us develop what the criteria and the program for granting out funds to help us septic might look like. But our I guess goal would be to work with the development district and allow them to help us manage the process from start to finish. Chuck Hammond, spoke with him Tuesday. He has agreed. I know we spent a lot of time last week asking a lot of good questions, and so I'm not expecting you to flip the script and vote to approve something else today. He has agreed to be at our next work session, next Monday rather, at 7. If you want him to be, to ask or answer any questions that you might have about what the process would look like. But essentially what we would do is once you approve moving forward with the development district, we would bring the utility companies in the development district to the table, allow them to work together to develop the projects and the plans as well as the application, and then bring it back to you all for full approval before the application is even turned in. All right, the commission would still have, and we would still need full approval on that before it's turned in. So I was asked what would this process look like, and I think that's what we hope it would look like. Keep in mind, we do still have that deadline of November 1st. So while we may be talking about another 2-week delay, we can't miss that opportunity, and it won't just be an overnight application process when we do. The development district is working with several other cities and counties in our area. McMinn County, Meigs County, Grundy County, Sequatchie County. So on this very grant, so this is not something that's out in left field that we brought them to the table. They're doing this for several others. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would agree that this is an administrative process that we need to kind of put in place. You know, and the 3% I think is a reduction. But prior to the application being submitted, you have to have some engineering services to be able to even present the grant. Will they provide those engineering services through their process?
When I have met with utility companies, the plans that they brought to the table have already been looked at by engineers. In other words, they're engineered plans. Cleveland Utilities has engineers.
Okay, you're talking about their plans that they have in place that they would like to put in place if the funding would become available. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and would that include this water lines that we've been working on for the last 3 years of where they've not serviced these water lines to these roads and residents? That would that be part of their plan?
They provided a list of roads with a cost estimate associated along with the number of homes that would potentially service. It's important to note too, we can't just pick a road and say we want to run water down this road. Okay, for Cleveland Utilities to properly use this money, they have to show that they are increasing their efficiency or their capabilities. So most of the roads that they presented are in the southern part of the county, which would allow them to better access one of their water sources, which is Eastside Utilities. And so it's not, we can't just, unfortunately, we can't just pick a road and say that's where we want the water to go.
And
So
basically what I was asking is, are those roads, or some of the roads included that we identify in the utility master plan?
Yes.
Would that be part of some of their plans?
Yes, I can say that on the sewer line from Ocoee and the water lines, at first glance, they do appear to fall into the same areas that our study that we paid for says this is where the greatest need is.
And then you're saying that Bradley County should proceed to also negotiate for I&I with Cleveland Utilities. You're just basically saying that that's already been done by the mayor's office?
For what now?
For
I&I?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that term.
For every 2 gallons, or for every 1 gallon that we would put into their system, that we would take care of 2 gallons of their I&I. It's called, that's what they call it.
Okay.
So that negotiation has already happened. That's basically what was in the engineer's plan, that before you could even try to figure out what kind of plans or selected projects you would move forward with, you would have to negotiate I&I with Cleveland Utilities, because then if that doesn't happen, then you would have to go to option B, which would be to create your own decentralized wastewater treatment plants throughout, several locations within the county.
With Cleveland Utilities, we're not discussing any sewer projects at all.
Well,
Strictly water.
You said that y'all discussed that and that was out or something.
Well, I was frank in my discussion with them. I didn't want to waste my time or theirs. If the ordinance was a done deal and there's not going to be movement anytime soon on the ordinance that the city has in place, meaning you can't have sewer outside the city limits without annexation, I said, let's spend our time focused on what we know we can work together on.
Are you aware of that ordinance, that there is a clause in that ordinance that the city council can waive that ordinance?
I am, yes.
Okay.
And to this point, we've not been able to have discussions with anybody at the city about potentially asking for a waiver. And so with the clock ticking, we felt that it was more responsible to go ahead and look at the projects that we could focus on and could partner with utilities and move forward there. Not to say that it can't be readdressed with the other pile of money that we've got. I think it's a conversation worth having, but I think considering that we're under a time constraint with the deadline, we should probably, just my opinion,
Okay.
we can certainly hit the pause button and go back to the table and try to bring the city to the table on sewer. But
And I think it warrants more discussion, and I'm glad that we will have, and they will be here next week.
the development district can be here if you'd like them to be, yes.
Yeah, that would be, I would like to see
Yeah.
that happen. I mean, and we, be more educated on what process of administrating that process.
And let me
what
be-
they would,
Sorry.
you know, be able to bring to the table and what all they're gonna do for that $200 and something
Yeah.
$1,000. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd go ahead and pull my resolution today. And like you said, 2 weeks is, I mean, time is of the essence,
Yeah.
but I think we need to be able to have all the information in front of us and see exactly what this utility, or this Southeastern Development District's gonna do for that amount of money.
Right.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Thompson and then Commissioner Hughes.
I guess the development district could lead us through this whole thing, right, with that hard another engineering outfit.
Yes.
They could do that. I know Ocoy's worked with the development district for the time that they've been there, and they've done very well with the money that they've had and with grants and things like that. And you mentioned the Hiawassee, Cleveland, and Ocoee. The city of Cleveland always kind of scares me when it comes to kind of dividing or helping or whatever. And it seems like it's always a money problem with them, and they want to get the biggest end of the deal. So why do we have to include the city of Cleveland with this?
Well, it's 2 things. One, they also are receiving several $1 million. I think it's
Yeah.
$5 million to be able to address these issues too. I go back to what we would see the process and how we would see it play out. We would work with the 3 that I mentioned, along with the development district, to put together a plan and an application, and then bring that to the full commission. At that point, it would be the purview of the commission. If you chose not to work with Cleveland Utilities or not allow them to apply along with the others, that would certainly be at your discretion.
So if we chose to go with the development district, we wouldn't have to pay this $35,500.
They would be helping, it would be more than that, but again, that $35,000 is for the application step. The 3%, and I should stress that what they did, which is that is a max of 3%. Depending on how far along these projects are, they may not need to invest in as much time, and so therefore that would be the max, would be that 3%, which is $225,000. And that again is for the whole 4 years. Because even if we spend $35,000 and bring in this engineering firm to do what they've said that they're going to do, and I believe they will, we still have to bid out and find someone to administer and report on the grant for the rest of the 4 years.
Are you talking about bidding another engineer?
No, the whole process has to be bid out. There's actually some discussion about whether or not what you were going to vote on today needed to be bid out or not. And I won't get into that because it's been pulled, but there was some question both from TDEC and the development district about whether or not this was something that we could go ahead and vote on. Although it's an amendment and not a new contract, which according to purchasing policies is okay to vote on without being bid out, the ARP guidelines are very strict that the entire process has to be bid out. So unfortunately, I didn't have an answer back before this meeting to be able to say for sure, but
Do we need to change this resolution, this F, number F? You pulled it, okay?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson did.
Okay, all right. All right.
Commissioner Hughes.
Now, if just the $225,000 that I keep hearing about, is that something that will be reimbursable, or is that something the utilities will be paying?
No, the grant allows for up to 6% administrative costs to be paid out of the grant funding. And so we did discuss with them and got them down to 3% as a max. So no, it would not be reimbursed.
Which I understand, what I'm understanding is we would have to pay that no matter what. Even if we
Correct.
went through this other company, it's
Correct.
still something that we pay.
That's correct.
We're just saving $35,000 by going this route.
And let me say this too, the meetings that have been had have been very preliminary. There have been no substantive negotiations. We've not gotten into the nuts and bolts, simply because we weren't going to waste anybody's time if the commission chose to move forward today on item F. So pending the discussion next week, and I guess maybe a vote the week after that, we would obviously go back to the table with those 3 and the development district or the engineering firm, and begin the process from there.
Is that the quickest that you need it, or do you need it quicker, or is there something we could do to speed that process up?
I mean, sooner is always better, but I wouldn't expect you all to, I don't have the expectation that you'll vote to approve what I'm suggesting today without having the opportunity to talk to the development district yourself and ask some questions. But obviously, if you'd like to approve it today, we can get rocking and rolling pretty quick.
I suspect the same, but I was just curious if it's
Yeah.
something we really need to move quickly on and then have the company come in later.
We just need to be mindful of that November 1st deadline. And although that's the deadline, it's a non-competitive grant, and at any point when we turn in the application, they've agreed to pay out. So we're not waiting until November. We could easily apply in July or August if we were at a point to do that, at which point, if all the boxes are checked and the money was awarded, we would get the money sooner than November 1st. That November 1st is just a deadline. We have to have it in before then. And in talking with the development district about the other counties that they're working with, the soonest that they're prepared to apply for anyone else is the end of June right now.
I don't thank you for all your work, and I'm sure the mayor had you busy working on it. Sounds like you've been extremely busy the last couple of weeks, but thank you. And again, if you need something quicker, I have no issue putting that on today to vote on this. I think most people would want more information.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rayburn, and Commissioner Warner, and Commissioner Atkins.
Mr. Lewis, just for clarity's sake, the $7.5 million from TDEC, you said can be utilized for water. Is there anything else that it can be used for? Or is it strictly water only?
The $7.5 million is for water, sewer, or it's called wastewater, or stormwater. Those are the three areas that this money can be spent.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This commission has worked 3 years on this project. And for many of us, we came here today thinking we were moving straight forward with the next project. If these utility districts had been so interested in doing this, why didn't they get into this as they read the paper, just like we all, the community has, and get into it and build with, we spent almost $100,000, as you know, to the engineering firm that brought the report that's in there. And we've gone over that and gone over that in the last meetings or so, and then told that it's November 1. And then in this meeting, we come to this place, expecting to do that. How did this happen so quickly? Because this has been going, as you know, Mr. Lewis, for 3 years plus, and a lot more years with people coming up needing this help. So tell me how this came up so quickly with utility companies, plus the mayor's office and everybody to bring this.
Frankly, we've all been waiting for more specific direction from the state. The mayor, when we first brought the ARP buckets to you all last year, if you'll recall, he mentioned that we were likely to get more money from the state outside of those buckets. At that time, it looked like they were just going to give us the money, similar to how the federal government gave us the ARP money. They have since decided to do this non-competitive grant route. So for much of the time since the money was even announced, they've been deciding how we're going to do this, how we're going to grant it out, what's it going to look like. It was only just a few weeks ago, I think less than a month, that these workshops were held by TDEC all across the state. And at these workshops, which I know Mr. Epperson attended in Chattanooga, I was able to attend a week later virtually on the virtual one. That was really the first time that we got any indication of a deadline, of the application process, of some of the requirements. And that was just, it hasn't even been a month since those meetings took place. Mr. Epperson was on top of it. He came back to you the very next week with what you were, and began with what you were going to discuss and potentially vote on today. We also began, at that point, the utility companies began to reach out to us, and as they knew more. And so I wouldn't say that it was rushed or that it came up quickly. It's just the way the process has worked at this point.
Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam is correct in the administrative part of this, and we are going to need someone else to administrate that. But I don't believe you're going to be able to do away with the engineering, no matter what engineering firm you pick, to be able to prioritize of the selection process of the projects that will be needed to do. I mean, unless you want to just go with the utility plans that they have in place. And basically, when they were talking about the scorecard, a certain percentage of the plan that the engineers would have came up with would have to account for some of the plans that they already have in place, which is the Akoya Utility, Cleveland Utilities, and Hiawassee. But basically, it would have to incorporate some of their wants, and then also, and that's why I question it, because I kind of doubt if their plans that they have in place and they have for some quite time would include those water lines putting into those areas. And I would hate to know that we would scrap. I think it was in detail what the engineers would charge to try to negotiate for I&I, which you don't know nothing about. But that's basically to negotiate for I&I, where most counties and cities do that, and then it usually is successful. And then just for instance, like say if they wanted to put the sewer line down North Fleet Highway, where I think the ladies here today speak, you know, that would be areas that these people would have, that those lines could be put in. So I'd hate to know that we would scrap the idea of trying to negotiate with the city to try to put those sewer lines in those key areas that there's a lot of septic tank failures. And just go with their plans and scrap everything that we've worked for the last 3 years.
Cleveland Utilities, I think, would be more than happy to discuss that, but again, their hands are tied. The folks that we talked with at Cleveland Utilities aren't the ones that decide whether or not a waiver or a change to the ordinance will be made. So our negotiation isn't really with the Cleveland Utilities, it's with the city of Cleveland and the council. And so far to this point, that's where we've not been able to come to a point where we can discuss that issue. Is that to say that they won't, or that they're stonewalling us? I would not suggest that at all. But to this point, we've not been able to have that discussion, and I don't know when we would be able to. I think it's important too to point out that, and I don't want to say which companies because I'll get it wrong, but at least 2 of them had worked with the very engineers that we're discussing on their plan. So there's a little bit of overlap here. And I think when you look at the total, and I got to be careful because I don't want to dismiss what they brought to the table to this point. But if you look at the total package, if you will, for $35,000, even if we need to retain some sort of outside engineering input, the vast majority of that proposal can be taken by the development district. You know, all of the surveys that they're suggesting and the actual writing of the application. So again, I want to be careful. I'm not here to advocate against them. We just see this as a more practical and efficient way to do the entire 4-year project. And I think too, folks are going to be surprised how this money, although we're talking about millions of dollars, is not going to go very far. When you start to see the costs, and these are estimates and some of them upwards of a year old, to just run water down one, we could spend $7 million to run water down one road, and that's it. That's nothing for anybody else. So while $7 million is a lot, $3 million and 3.9, I think we're going to all be really surprised when we see how very little we get done with this kind of money, even though we're talking about millions of dollars.
In the master utility plan, it was estimated about to take care of the vast majority of the water projects was about $2 million. You didn't sit in any of those meetings, so you're probably not aware of that. And also, you know, engineering would basically work with these utility companies. I think it would be a well-spent $35,000 to be able to, you know, the project selection process. They would work with the utility companies, making sure that what this county commission has worked for the last 3 years and improved the utility study. And basically, we have those 3 things in mind to take care of. And basically, you know, the negotiation for, you know, for I&I, be able to take, and then, you know, you got to get Cleveland Utilities on board before you get the city of Cleveland, city council on board, because if the city of Cleveland Utility doesn't come on board and negotiate with the I&I, you're not going to get the city council to come on board. So there's a process on how you do that, and it's been achieved in a lot of other counties and cities. So And that's basically what I've been trying to do, trying to educate everybody on how the process works. I basically laid it in everybody's lap, how it should happen, and this is the process. But, but if we want to scrap all that, that's what we'll do. I mean, I know I wouldn't be able to.
Well, we're not suggesting we scrap it again. I mean, we want this money, this is our money, we're gonna get this money one way or another.
I hope so.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't at this point. The only way I see we lose out on this money is if we continue to discuss it for months on end, and we go out on rabbit trails, and try to go after things that we may not ever be able to get, and miss the opportunity to apply. So I don't think, and I know, I'll speak for the mayor, we're 100% behind going after this money. I guess my suggestion would be at this point, and I appreciate you pulling the agenda item, would be to come next week and talk with the development district. At that point, I think we'll all have a better idea of what they're capable of and what they're able to bring to the table, and what, if anything, we might need an outside company to do for us. But again, this is in no way meant to inhibit the process or the fact that we are absolutely behind investing this money where it makes the most sense for Bradley County.
Commissioner Peak?
I just have one question. You said that septic tank repairs could not be done out of the $7.5 million. However, I'm pretty sure the question was asked during that meeting if it could be used toward it, and they did say that it could be used for septic tank repairs. Am I correct, Commissioner?
Commissioner Peak, you are, and they also said that rehabilitation of wells. So if we're gonna fix a bunch of septic systems, I know a lot of roads that do not have existing water lines on them. And I just asked you just the other week ago, one out on Leadmine Valley Road, on Lady Road or something. The water line's halfway down that road, and the other half are on wells, and all the wells are contaminated. So I was told there at that meeting that septic system repairs could be put into this plan, and also we could do wells.
And if I've learned anything through this process, it's that there's a lot of confusion. You attended a different meeting than I did, and I absolutely believe that that's what you were told. The question was asked in the meeting I was at, and a totally different answer was given. So I'm not here to say who's right or wrong. I'm just here to say there's questions that we don't have answers to. And so for that reason, I think it's also prudent to step back and wait till we get those. I have at least 2 important questions out to TDEC that I have not got, that have been out since Wednesday, that I have not gotten a response back yet. And at least the initial person that I spoke with, they weren't sure. So that was a little concerning too. But as far as we've been directed to proceed, it's only water, sewer, and stormwater.
No, I was just going to point out, they did text Nashville while we were there at that meeting, and they didn't give me the answer to that question, because some of the commissioners here asked me to ask that question, could this money be used for septic tank repair? And before that meeting was over, or at the end, I walked up to the lady that was conducting the meeting, and then that's what she had responded, saying that could be used.
And if that turns out to be the case, I think that's fantastic, but that also adds another layer of complexity to this, because none of the 3 utility companies are going to do anything about sewer. So now we're back to developing our own plan of how to execute those funds, and how long will that take, and who do we bring to the table to help us develop that? Do we use TDEC resources? Do we farm out an engineering firm? The county doesn't have anybody on staff, so I'm not saying that if that's the case, that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just another layer of complexity that's going to have to be dealt with.
It would be difficult to implement something that quickly, I agree.
And my final comment was, nobody's formally ever asked the city of Cleveland if they would go beyond their ordinance and allow county residents to go. So maybe it's time we formally ask them. I know we've talked about it for years, and up here, everybody always says, well, we'll have to go to city council. They're the only ones that can do it. Well, when are we going to actually formally ask them? The mayor's office just has to go ask. Or do we need to send a resolution asking them to go on record stating what they're going to do? Or did they want to start negotiating that aspect? Just throwing that out there. Nobody's ever formally asked city council.
Any other questions, Mr. Lewis? And do you have anything else for the mayor?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda, can I entertain a motion for consent agenda? Commissioner Epperson, a second from Commissioner Thompson. Any questions? Call the roll, please, madam.
Pepperson?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Alford?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Ball?
Yes.
Peak?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Goins?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mason?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Draper?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Thank you, madam. Reports from committees and or districts. We'll start with you, Commissioner Winters. Chris Wright.
Just real quickly, I don't want to reveal anything private, but I was going to ask my neighboring commissioner here if he would update on his brother-in-law, Mr. Hughes. He's had some recent health problems, and to just sort of give a brief update on that. And one other thing before he does so is I had an email sent to me concerning that at some point in time that Mr. Winters and I may not return correspondence, and I can't ever think of a time that when you text me, email me, call me, voicemail, anything, I always return them. So please continue to try. I always, and I'll come out and see you even, so, which I've done so with a lot of constituents. So anyway, thank you, and pass on if he would just give us a brief update. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Hughes has had a heart attack. He has had an open heart surgery. It's been very successful. I visited with him yesterday. He's ready to eat a full meal. He's ready to do all this stuff. He's got his phone close and thinking about things. But needs your prayers, doing well. But this was a quick incident. It became a major health issue. So keep him in your prayers. It's been quick. It has been very successful. Best doctors. And his bypasses have been successful. So we're on the good side of this. So he's strong, and he's ready to go. He's ready to get out. He's been up and down the hall yesterday twice, and we'll be moving on. So he's a private person as much as he can be in this public world, and he's thankful for the Lord's blessings and the prayers of those that know, and we move quickly, and the doctors move quickly. It's very successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All is well on the 6th.
Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I've got a few things today. Sheriff's TDOT litter program, give a few totals on that for the past month. It's in 431 county road miles, 191 state road miles, 75 city road miles that we don't get counted for, but we always help the city. 13,440 pounds of litter picked up in the month of April. Also, 860 pounds of recycled materials, and I'll give a report. I don't normally give reports unless someone asks, but if someone asked about environmental, had 5 warning tickets, 4 convictions, 8 court dates, and as always, thanks to Sheriff Steve Lawson. He doesn't micromanage our crews. He just says to go get it, and we do. Missy Harrison, litter coordinator, Thomas Bell for doing a good job. It's hard to watch 8 to 10, 12 men on our county state roads. And also superintendent of our new workhouse, James Gregory. We had a meeting with them, the commissioners did last Monday. And he's doing a great job on the work release program for all of our, he's getting that back up and going, and he does a wonderful job. So you see these people, tell them thanks. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Good report. Mr. Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last tire abatement day of the season was this past Saturday. A total of 866 illegal dumped tires were disposed of legally, and this brings the total of tires that have been abated to 8,802. Also, this coming Saturday, May the 21st, There will be a celebration of the history and legacy of the Blythe Oldfield community. This event includes a walk through history, bus tours of the community, food, door prizes, games, and other events. The event will take place in the Blythe Oldfield Park from 4 to 7, and it will be a wonderful opportunity to see the transformation that's happening in the Blythe Oldfield community. Also this week is National EMS Week. National EMS Week honors the contribution of those who work on the medical front line. This year, National EMS Week is celebrated from May 15th through May the 23rd. Every day, our EMS providers put the needs of our community above their own as they respond to crisis, treat injuries, and save lives. Their heroism is on display each day as they serve Bradley County. This year's EMS theme is Rising Up to the Challenge, and it pays tribute to the brave frontline professionals who work tirelessly to help their fellow Americans get immediate medical attention in the hours of their greatest need. The unwavering commitment of EMS providers to public service often comes at the cost of their own physical well-being, mental health, and precious time with their loved ones. Would you join me this week in paying honor and thanks to our EMS for the work they perform each and every day as they meet the needs of our community, often in the hours of our greatest need. So if you see these guys and gals out this week, please stop and thank them for the job that they do each and every day to help our citizens. And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Commissioner Owens.
They're still pouring sidewalk over on Dalton Pike, and that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Owens. Commissioner Thompson.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crichton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Education Committee met last week and discussed population trends and the impact on our schools. I wish to place on the May the 23rd work session agenda a motion to establish an ad hoc committee meeting to study these trends and recommend any action needed for our schools to accommodate these changes. It'll be a small committee, but the county planner and a member from the school system will be part of that committee, so I don't anticipate but maybe 4 or 5 people. The second district is doing fine. The no dumping signs that the road department put up under the interstate Upper Gap Road seem to be working for a change. Hopefully it won't change because I brought it to public attention. That's all, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Crichton. Commissioner Peak.
Hawk Street, I would still like the planning department to go by there and check out all those storage units that are being used to house people. They're being rented out. So if someone can get on that, I'd appreciate it. And that's all I have for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Alford.
Yes, just a couple of things, Chairman. First of all, second district seems to be doing well. A concern, I guess it is, of mine, and I know Sean has mentioned it several times. I've been visiting the hospital the last 2 or 3 weeks here occasionally. Last 2 times I've come out of the hospital, there was four of our ambulances sitting outside the emergency room door. And I know he's mentioned that before, how long they've had to sit out there. So with the deal in Buffalo this past week, with 4 ambulances locked up at the emergency room at the hospital, it really kind of made me get a little bit concerned. If we had a major problem here in Bradley County with our ambulances sitting up there at the hospital, I think we'd have some really, really big problems. So I don't know who we need to discuss this with, but evidently the emergency room at Genova is just, I don't know if they're overbooked or what's going on, or they don't have enough help. My understanding, they don't have enough help, but I think we need to look into that, because I think sooner or later we're going to have a problem. And we've got ambulances tied up at the hospital with patients inside the ambulance or waiting to get inside the emergency room. We're going to have a real problem. So I thought, I'm not sure who we need to talk to, Adam, maybe get the mayor to talk to Genova people or something, but we got a real problem. And maybe Mr. Hughes with your EMS committee start looking into this, because I see something coming down the road, we're gonna have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alford. Did you get that, Commissioner Hughes? All right, Commissioner Hughes.
Commissioner Alford, it's funny that you brought that up here, Tommy Solicit, because this is something we've been talking about for a few weeks, actually. I've got the county attorney looking into the different options that we can take. In fact, I spoke with the county mayor just a few days about this same issue. We are trying to get our, or at least I'm trying to get my ducks in a row before we call for the meeting, but everything's kind of, you know, how government goes, everything's slow. So it is coming, I'll say that much. And as following through with that, Adam, the county mayor's not here. I'm following up on last week, I brought up the fact that Republic's not accepting cash at the landfill. Has anyone spoken to Republic, or have we heard anything back on them about that issue?
I don't know that he made a phone call, but I know that they'll be coming in the week after this week, next week.
I know we've got landfill committee meetings, so.
What day is that?
Monday.
23rd. We'll be ready for Monday.
And the only other complaint I've had is on the landfill this weekend. Apparently there was several complaints about it. So other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Epperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything's doing good in the first district. I have received an email from an elderly lady that lives close to Hopewell School, and she was concerned about the first house that you took left there on Freewell Road from Highway 60. There's an abandoned house there, the first one on the right, and it has a pool around the back, and they were out there the other day taking the fence down, a construction crew, and she asked them to leave the fence up because the next door neighbor has two young boys that would basically, go into that situation, and it may not be a good alternative. So I would like to get with, or maybe contact information with $2. I think Mr. Winters, you would got some of those numbers. If I could get one of those numbers, be able to help in this situation and make sure that that pool gets filled up before that fence comes down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I entertain a motion for approval of the agenda? Moved by Commissioner Thompson, second by Commissioner Hughes. Any discussion? Call the roll, please, Madam.
Epperson,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Fry.
Yes.
Mull,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam. Entering into the agenda item A is to appoint 4th District Board of Education members to fulfill the unexpired term of that 4th District Board member. Can I entertain nominations in here? Mr. Thompson?
I'd like to nominate Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor. Any other nominations? Would anybody from the audience like to nominate someone?
I'd like to second that, Josh Taylor.
I'll note that. No more nominations, we have a second. Second, Commissioner Peak. Any discussion? All right, call the roll.
Epperson,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Mull,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Congratulations, Mr. Taylor. You know, this is to fill the remainder of the term, you're aware of that. I guess you'll get with Amanda and Dr. Cash about the swearing in when you guys will do that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to say anything if you want to.
I'd like to say thank you to the commission for the nomination and appointment. Look forward to the opportunity to serve Bradley County well.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, Item B, appoint 5th District Board of Education member to fill the unexpired term. Again, basically the same thing. Do I have any nominations?
I was just going to say the GOP had a caucus on the 12th, and she was the only one that had they voted unanimously to vote for her. So I just want to let you know that. But I like to recommend her.
Okay. You want to nominate Rachel? Nominate Rachel Goins. Anybody from the audience want to nominate someone? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slater. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Everson.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Cry.
Yes.
Mull.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Draper.
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Thank you, ma'am. Congratulations, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you.
Again, the same thing I just told Mr. Taylor, that get with Amanda and Dr. Cash, and they'll determine when you're going to swear in to fulfill the rest of this time. Would you like to say anything?
Basically the same thing Josh Taylor said. It's a great opportunity to serve the community.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
May we applaud both of them, and congratulations.
Item C, Commissioner Cry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Bradley County Schools budget hearing, I'd like to have Susan Wilcott come up, please, and go through this.
Thank you, Mr. Cry, and thank all of the commission for allowing me to address you today. I have tried to limit a few of the PowerPoint slides because I know multiple times, so I didn't want to put you through any additional pain. So if there's something that you see that is missing that you want me to go back and cover, I'll be more than happy to do that. So I'm going to start just with the revenue section. BEP funds are still our largest source of revenue for FY23, and it's still driven primarily by ADMs, or our average daily membership. We are very proud that we've recovered a majority of our ADMs that we lost last year due to COVID. We received our April BEP estimate on Friday before I presented it to the board, and we were pleasantly surprised. We had heard that the state was infusing K-12 funding with an additional $125 million across the state, but we didn't know what that would actually mean for Bradley County schools. When I looked at what changed in the BEP formula, I found that 4% was added to the salary component, and that the financial indices, which affects the state and local split, had been updated. It looks as if they basically held the local match constant, which means the state portion is going to be much higher in FY23. So if we look at our local revenue, we are projecting that for FY23, local option sales tax will increase by 5.16% over current year actuals. That number is calculated based on historical growth and the current economic market. And what we do when we look at historical data, we consider 8 years of data. And I think that's important to mention today especially, because many times you'll take 3 to 5 years, which would be so heavily influenced by COVID. So I just wanted you to know that we do take 8 years into account, which kind of levels out any peaks and valleys. We are projecting that FY23 property tax will increase by 1.5% over current year actuals. And we are projecting our payment in lieu of taxes to be reduced by around $245,000 due to several companies rolling off the program. And of course, I'm sure you guys know even more than I do that when they roll off of the in lieu of, they will just roll into regular property tax. So it's not actually a loss of revenue, but you will notice on the budget document that line item went down substantially. I always like to show this pie chart. I really create this more for our teachers and for the board, but I think it's eye-opening for any of us that are interested in education. That what we're presenting today, almost an $89 million budget, out of that, approximately 81% goes to salaries and benefits. And we always like to make a big deal of that so that our teachers and staff know that we strive very, very hard to keep our benefit and salary package competitive. And you can also see of the other little pieces of that pie, even though you think about how much we spend in utilities a year or in capital outlay, look how small that piece of the pie actually is in comparison to our salary and benefits. And here's our budget highlights. So we are funding step raises, which costs approximately $500,000. We are funding a 4% across the board raise for all salaried employees. That costs approximately $3,023,000. We're funding and adopting a new nurse scale. The scale actually went to $32,000 and top out at $42,000, which cost the system of around $95,000 to do. However, the 4% raise that we are proposing would be applied to that, so that new range would start at $33,280 and would top out at $43,680. We are also funding and adopting a new subscale that will cost the system around $120,000. And I'll just stop right there to say I'm sure that all of you have been in on conversations where our biggest struggle for the last 2 years has been attracting and maintaining nurses and attracting and maintaining subs. So that is what warranted that proposal. We are also funding a 2.5% health insurance increase. This will not be voted on until later in May, but that's what we're projecting, which would cost the system about $152,000. A 2.5% increase is what we had this year, and so that's what I plugged in, but we're really shooting at a moving target on that. We are receiving a 1.61 retirement decrease for our certified legacy employees, and most of you know that is our employees that were here before July 1 of 2014. If they came after that date, they would be in the hybrid plan. The hybrid plan's rate will stay consistently at 9%, so there won't be the up and down. But for the legacy employees, that percent went down. So that's going to save the system about $180,000. We are having to increase our operations, maintenance, and transportation budget in several lines. So when you're looking through our budget, you'll notice several of those operating lines are going to be increased. And that is basically due to the Pie Center opening and to inflation. Anything that takes fuel or tires or equipment, you're going to see increases in those line items. We are also funding a total of $2.8 million for capital outlay, and that includes building improvements through either school or principal request or maintenance request. We are allocating $1,025,451 for that. We are allocating $424,549 out of our capital outlay to make our energy payment. We had about $85,000 left on the architect payment. That is for the Bradley Central High School Science Wing. We are allocating $415,000 to finish up the Hopewell Road expansion. We are allocating $350,000 for our computer refresh. And then at the last minute, because we did not get our BP number till like the 2 days before I had to present this, because that number was higher than we had anticipated, we have put an additional $500,000 into like an undesignated capital outlay. If that number holds, we plan to get the capital outlay committee back together and ask them to go back through the requests from the schools and handle a lot of those things that we did not have money to do before. I wanted to talk a little bit about fund balance because that's a very popular subject this year. Our fund balance currently is around 7%. We anticipate after we do our year-end roll that to go to about 12.14%, which equates to approximately $10,682,171. That might seem a bit high, but we are recommending it due to the following reasons. First, we are not completely confident that our final BEP number will stay as high as the April estimate. when we calculated what we anticipated, and this, again, is with no information from the state. They have spent so much time working on the TISA formula, which will be next school year, that we were not getting any information on BEP. But I was hearing rumblings that they were going to propose maybe a 4% increase to the salary component. So when I had done what calculations I could do on the information I had, I thought we would receive about $1.3 million in new money, and we received $1 million more than that. So I'm a little bit cautiously optimistic that until we get our July final BEP number, that number could change somewhat. That's why we put that $500,000 in capital outlay, because we felt like if that number doesn't hold, that would be an easy shift. We also want to have a cushion to ensure that we can finish the projects currently in progress. We've still got PI going, we've got the Hopewell project going, we've got the science wing, we've got sales tax that we're not sure that number's going to hold due to the economy. So those are some reasons that we also wanted to keep a little more cushion in that fund balance. We need to be mindful that next year, many of those ESSER expenditures are going to have to come back to general purpose. We talked a lot about that last year, but that's coming up very quickly. And we still don't know for sure what TISA is going to look like. They're giving us estimates. Until I get something concrete, you know, I don't feel good about putting us in a position where we can't make our expenses. This budget draft presented today, not tonight, is a result of the collaboration of many stakeholders. Thank you to Dr. Cash, the Board of Education, this county commission, the mayor's office, trustee's office, and assessor's office for working together to support education and be good stewards of taxpayer money. I would also like to thank my office staff for their hard work during this process, especially Ellen Smith. Thank you guys so much for investing in Bradley County Schools. I could not ask for a better group to work with on all fronts. I've been very blessed with this group of commissioners, with all of the committees that I work with, and with our Board of Education. And I will field any questions that you have, or I will try.
I will tell you that the first district and the people living in Meigs County and surrounding Emily County and so on that travels Highway 60 will be extremely excited to hear about the expansion of the roadway around Hopewell. So thank you.
Absolutely. And that is my district, so I can't wait myself.
Commissioner Wright.
Does anyone else have any questions, Commissioner Mason?
I'd like to commend Susan also. We had our education committee meeting on Monday, or last Wednesday, and it was glad for me to hear that they've included the cafeteria workers and I consider the movers and shakers of county employees too, with 4% raise also. So I'm excited about that. Thanks, Susan, for that.
Absolutely.
Because they matter.
They absolutely matter. We could not make it without them. And I don't know how many of you know this about me, but when I started with Bradley County Schools, I started as a guidance department secretary. And so I have a very soft spot in my heart for secretaries, for cafeteria workers, for our custodians. I know what a difference they make in how our schools operate. And I also know that so many of those people are the people that when the public comes in, that's the people that set the tone for how they're going to feel about that school visit. So, I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner Mason.
Thank you.
I might add that these janitors that we have as employees, they're the people that prepare that floor that you can shave off of when you go in. And it's critical. They are a vital part, and I'm thrilled that we're giving them a good pay raise, but not good enough with the inflation going at 8-9%. But at least we're giving them something. Anyone else have any questions, please? Bill, Commissioner Wood.
Susan had a great opportunity to learn how to say no, but she was a finance director at Ocoee Middle School. This principal like to go through all kinds of different opportunities to make the school best for the kids. But she would come into my office and close the door and very gently say, Mr. Winters, you can't do this. I said, we can't do this, why not? She said, we don't have the funds at this point. So she's the best. We're just very fortunate to have her leading the finances of Bradley County School with Dr. Cash and the board. So she's come up the right way and knows how to work with people and knows how to make these budgets come through with reports like we've seen today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winters, and of course, I owe so much to you. I appreciate you so much giving me the opportunity.
Mr. Thompson.
Susan, you do a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We try hard.
I can't say enough about Susan. I'm down there pestering her all the time. Not as much as Commissioner Blake, but I'm down there quite often. Does anyone else have any questions for her? Again, on the behalf, thank you very much for the performance of the budget.
Thank you so much for your support.
Moving on to item D. This would be Commissioner Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution authorizing Bradley County Mayor to negotiate and enter into an agreement for roof replacement services with Willoughby Roofing and Sheet Metal Incorporated for the Bradley County Annex Building for an amount of $276,800. Mr. Chairman, I put this in the form of a motion.
A second by Commissioner Goins. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Jefferson,
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Cry.
Yes.
Moe.
Yes.
Peak.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Draper.
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Motion passes. Item E, Commissioner Ray.
This is a resolution approving amendments to local government public improvement bond series, and I'm not sure whether that's V11 or Roman numeral 7-P-1, and the related supplemental indenture to extend the applicable index rate period relating to such bonds and to provide for replacement for LIBOR, interest, index for such bonds, and the information is on pages 42 through 48. I put this in form of motion.
Motion, do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Cry. Any discussion? I call roll, please, ma'am.
Everson.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Cry.
Yes.
Moe.
Yes.
Peak.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Draper.
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Thank you, madam. Motion passes. Item F has been pulled. Mr. Lewis, so you will make sure to get with Mr. Hammond and them about being here next week, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you, sir. Item G, Commissioner Peak.
Resolution amending Rule 8 of the Bradley County Rules of Procedure regarding meetings of internal standing committees. Put that in form of motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Ray. Any discussion? Yes, Commissioner Page.
I would like to note that in there, it says to the extent possible that everyone should meet in this room and it be live fed or videoed. I do understand that juvenile might have some things that maybe should not leave that office. I do understand that, so that's why this is in here. It says to the extent possible. So I'm sure there's some sensitive issues and material that shouldn't leave there. So that one, I understand the exception. But the others, I think if they know there's a meeting, they should prepare and come prepared for the meeting here. So I think we actually made the road department start coming here. And it was also more convenient for all the commissioners to come to one central location than having to go all over the county to meet at different locations. So I now also understand that you have committees that will meet on field trips, and that's fine also, but for transparency, I just think this is just the next move that we need to take. We have this system, let's use it. I think Adam said he could do it when he's not here. We're gonna have to teach Lori how to do the 2 buttons back here in the back. There'll have to be 2 people always. I think that would have to know something. You can't always just leave something up to one person. So I think our inconveniences should not outweigh the public and their want for us to do this. So that's why I am proposing this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Have a second by Commissioner Bradford. Discussion.
Just one thing, Commissioner Peak touched on it, and then I had another concern. Just in case Ms. Moultrie and Mr. Lewis weren't here, I didn't want to get locked in, but the wording has changed now where, if at all possible, or something to that effect, and I appreciate you changing that. So.
And the chairman would address the chair, the chairman of the committee would address the chair that this is needing to be done. So it would work pretty smooth. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes.
This question was basically for Lori. Lori, as of right now, all of our meetings are recorded, is that correct?
They are audio recorded.
If somebody wanted to request a copy of that recording, how would they go about it?
They would just go through the proper open records request process.
Does that make sense? These meetings, are they posted anywhere for someone just to get out of, or do they have to do an open records request?
We don't have them posted simply because the storage of all of these audios would be rather great. So at this point in time, they have to go through the open records request process.
And what is that process?
They just need to fill out a form. They can contact me, they can email me, call me, request an open records request policy packet. I'll send it to them and they can complete that, snail mail it, email it, hand deliver it to me, and then we'll get that turned around as quickly as possible. I think we have 7 business days. Is that, yes, 7 business days.
Is there any cost to that?
Well, sometimes we can transfer an audio file and it doesn't cost anything. We can deliver electronically. However, sometimes meetings go rather long, and if you get past that about an hour and a half mark, sometimes we have to do thumb drives or CDs, that kind of thing, so we'll have to purchase those.
Commissioner Hall.
Just a question, my understanding, I don't know of any committees that don't meet here other than possibly juvenile, so why do we even bring that subject up? Every committee I know right now is meeting here.
Finance, that's all.
Finance meets out here every day.
Yes, but we're talking, it's not about meeting here, it's about live video.
Law enforcement.
Yeah, and law enforcement, and EMS sometimes meets at the offices,
I
so.
just, I think it's just gonna create some gray area on some of the meetings as to where they're gonna be here, they're gonna be at the EMS or wherever. I just don't see any reason to, we've already got it, I think, we'll put it that way, that we already meet here. I know EMS meets here, so I don't know of other committees other than maybe juvenile that doesn't meet here.
It's not about that part of it. It's about live streaming the meetings at this location. That's what this is about, transparency. This has nothing to do with that, pretty much. If you're saying they all meet here, then they all meet here. There's no issues then. Juvenile will meet where they meet because of the sensitivity and nature of their meetings. However, the rest of them should meet right here in this room, and what I'm proposing is that it's live fed so that nobody has to do the open records request. All they have to do is push a button. And if I have to wait 7 days to get the recording from something, you guys are already up here voting on it. Because sometimes you go straight to finance or the other committee, it doesn't go through the proper committees or it doesn't go to a work session. So some of us, I'll still be here through August, so I can't get to every committee meeting. I would like to watch it sometimes live or be able to go that evening and watch it. And that is more accessible than this 7-day turnover on open records request to get a recording so that I can hear it. And I think the constituents deserve this transparency as well. And I don't think it's a gray area, and I don't think it's an issue unless somebody makes it an issue. It's just transparency, and I don't see any reason to vote against it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any, Commissioner Winters?
We're pretty transparent in those meetings that are off campus. We have the newspaper, the reports. We have our administrative assistant that presents all the information to all of us. I understand transparency. I think we do a pretty good job. If you want to have everybody see how we actually express ourselves, that's a different matter. But just to say that we don't have transparency because one of us can't attend one of the meetings is a little much. But I don't have a problem with putting this in if the chair has an opportunity to say, and if the sheriff says I need to have my staff on campus there to have a meeting, and the chair tells the chair we need to meet with law enforcement. If we have that, that's fine with me. But just to say it's not transparent, having meetings that is put in the newspaper, so I didn't read the newspaper, it's on Facebook many times, there's the newspaper item in there, plus Lori shares with each one of us members a committee report. It goes right down the line of what we've done. So I think we're pretty transparent. We can go on and they don't get to see the inflection of our voices and they don't get to see us in person, but at the same time, I think we have been transparent. But beyond that, if we could do a little more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pete?
And I wasn't meaning that we're not transparent. This just adds to the transparency, and it's immediate. I have access to it immediately, and so does the public, and we don't have to wait for an open records request in 7 days. That's all I'm saying. It's a lot easier for me to log in and watch if I'm not able to get to that committee meeting. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thompson?
Before we had that little room open back there, we used to meet right down there. Finance committee would meet before the work session, or before the voting session. They'd meet right here at 2 tables. And we could sit up here and everybody was out there. We didn't have a little room back there to sit in. So, you're right, we need more transparency, and I think the public would like to hear some of it. And they can come to the meetings anyway. It's a little crowded back there in that little room sometimes. And, so either way it's okay, but I just think there's more room out here, and if the public wants to come, they've got room to see it.
Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask a question. Would this also include ad hoc committees? Because I think that would be really educational for the citizens to be able to keep up with these ad hoc committees and things. I'm just curious.
Typically, we have anything in the year, unless there's an extenuating circumstances for the would. Thank you, Mr. Any other discussion? We have first, Commissioner Peak and Commissioner Raker. Call roll, madam.
Everson.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I had one other.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Excuse me.
Who's gonna record these if Adam and Miss Lori's not here?
It says to the extent of
Extent
possible.
possible is what it says. So if there's nobody here, it won't be recorded on that day.
Adam's duties with the mayor, lots of times will tire him away from our meetings, I'm sure, committee meetings. And I firmly think that Ms. Lori doesn't need to have, she's too busy doing notes and so forth to sit here and look at recordings also. So I just gotta think we're gonna have a real problem is who does all this recording of meetings and so forth. So that's just a point I'd like to make. Because it's easy to sit up here and say be transparent, you know, but I see a lot of problems with it.
Mr. Hughes?
My understanding is the agendas are on the minutes, or the agendas are online. Am I correct about that?
Committee agenda items are listed on our calendar, the County Commission calendar, which is on the county website, but not.
So if somebody's really interested in what was on that agenda, they could just come to the meeting. It also has the location, correct, where the meeting's going to be at. I don't know how much more transparent you can be than that. But I also agree with Commissioner Alford that I know, Lori, during these meetings, especially MS, you've got several commissioners on there, and we're dealing with ambulance and fire, and it goes several different directions and normally goes several hours. I think you're adding one more load onto Lori that that's going to be difficult to get, and considering she's the one that types up the minutes. In the end of this, a lot of these meetings, I definitely don't want her to miss a few things because she's messing with the camera.
Commissioner Peak and then Commissioner Davis.
Well, nobody said that the public didn't have access to agendas or anything else. And I didn't say we're not transparent. I said this will add to the transparency. And it will also allow me and any other commissioner to log in immediate. It's immediate, it's live. That's the whole purpose of this, that everything is live and we can see what's going on immediately and not have to wait to get those recordings of those meetings later, at a later date. It's immediate. And nobody said that it was gonna be convenient either. But I also said that we should put aside our inconveniences and do this so that we add more transparency and that the public is aware that we are doing everything we can to be more transparent. That's all I'm saying. The public deserves for us to be inconvenienced. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
We may not remember off the top of our heads, but I'm pretty sure that whenever we presented the camera system in the beginning, it was voted in unanimously. We all were for putting in the camera system so that we could have our meetings live streamed. Can you give us a little bit of insight into how much additional work this may be, or what the process is to go ahead and live stream each meeting? Is there a button that you have to push in the back? Can you just go over what that process looks like?
It is essentially just starting and stopping the recording, which can be done by the panel from the back. I have an iPad device that I can do it from my seat here that could also be utilized, but it's at a very basic level, it's pressing the record button and pressing a stop button. Everything on the back end happens automatically at that point. It goes out to the social media platforms. That we have multiple camera angles. The default camera angle is just the wide shot of the room. So and I've done this many times myself, if it's a busy meeting, I've not zoomed in and utilized the different camera angles because there's a lot going on, and I've just left it at the wide shot. So at a very basic level, that's all that would be required at the bare minimum. Obviously, more could be done. It also becomes an issue of archiving because it becomes a public record, and so we're, I think, still working on how to make it available on the website. It's certainly available. You can go back and look at any of the meetings that are viewed. We're also still making some tweaks to the audio. I believe right now, actually, there's no audio, so there's 3 people listening to silence for the last hour and a half, which is impressive. But how to get the audio from this table, for instance, or when the roll is called without walking up to the podium. So there are a few small minor tweaks that are still being made.
But those are all things that you would have to work out regardless.
Correct.
If we live stream our committee meetings, because
Correct.
those are issues that are going to have to be dealt with every Monday, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Houston.
So this is no more than just flipping a switch back here, or there's nothing else that will have to be done?
At a very basic level, it's the
Basic.
record button back there and then the stop button. But if you forget to press record, or if you forget to press stop, then the rest of the afternoon is being live streamed to Facebook. So it's just a matter, I mean, that would be whether it's myself or Lori, would have to just be on top of that.
Commissioner Pete and then Commissioner Epperson.
And if it's that simple, the chairs of each committee wouldn't mind doing that. I'll do it for my committees if I'm here.
Judging by the use of the computer systems, I'm not sure that that's a good idea to give them access to everybody. I would be a little worried about that. I can be at most of the meetings. That's the truth is, I come to a lot of the committee meetings as well, but there are times when I just can't.
And this also says, though, to the extent, and so that is one of the exceptions. Thank you.
Commissioner Epperson, Commissioner Thompson, and Commissioner Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few of the commissioners have spoken for Lori in saying that they don't want to burden her with extra duties, and I put her on the spot. Would this be something that you could handle?
At the basic level that Adam just described, absolutely not. That'd be perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
With all this big money we make, we should be transparent. So it shouldn't be no problem. Everybody makes plenty of money.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Alford?
Adam, you made a comment there. Did I understand you say there's 3 people streaming right now?
I think, I turned it off, but there were, on the Bradley County government page, there were 3.
3 people.
But now there've been more. If there's audio, there'd be a lot more.
That would help.
Yeah.
So there's 30 on the live stream for Mix 104.
Correct. We get a lot of replays. Most of our views take place after the meetings are held.
So it is available live on Mix 104 and after the fact also on Mix 104 today.
That's correct. Commissioner Hughes?
I think that after hearing how simple it would be, I'm all right with it. But also, I just didn't want to add more problems to Lori. But now, Mix 104 will not be at those committee meetings.
That's what I was going to say. We almost exclusively do just commission. We don't normally show for the committees.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. You can call the roll, Rick.
Yes, again?
Just making sure. Hughes.
Yes.
Alford.
I'm gonna say yes, but I'll refer back to my original comments down the road somewhere that we will have major problems with this scenario.
Cry.
The more sunlight, the greener the grass, yes.
Mull.
Yes.
Peak.
Yes.
Thompson.
I guess so, yeah.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Rayford.
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Motion passes finally. Item H. Going into a public hearing now, is there anyone here to speak for or against the Bradley County zoning resolution to create an R3 residential apartment district and an R4 residential mobile home park and trailer district? Anybody here to speak in public for or against them? Being none, we'll go back into the agenda. Commissioner Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, let me put this in a formal question. Resolution to amend the Bradley County zoning resolution to create a R3 residential apartment district and a R4 residential mobile home and travel park, or travel trailer park district. I put that in formal question.
Motion, do I have a second? Commissioner Mason, second. Any discussion? Mr. Evers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question for Commissioner Hughes. Was that a unanimous decision in the planning?
It was.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please, ma'am.
Atchison.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Alford.
Yes.
Cry.
Yes.
Mull.
Yes.
Peak.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Goins.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Rayford.
Yes.
Winters.
Yes.
13 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent.
Good, motion passes. This time, we need communication from the audience. Ms. Clayton? Oh.
Good day. I watched the commission meeting last week on Tuesday when I had a minute. What a disconnect. The pro-tax commissioners gave a reason why they got defeated. That was, of course, their opinion, and this is my opinion and the opinion of most people that I've talked to. The reason they got defeated was because they voted for the tax increase. Plain and simple, 80% were in opposition to that tax increase, but they voted for it. You know, there was a couple of commissioners I feel that were fortunate that their race had 2 opponents. You know, it was pretty close. Another one ran for a different position, but I feel that tax vote also contributed to that outcome.
Point of order is the statements against the individuals that are sitting here.
He stopped saying anyone's name to Mr. Winters at the
Another one said, if you don't like my vote on the tax, vote me out. They did. But I think the most reprehensible comment of all was a commissioner that was chiding the fellow commissioner in that district about non-support. Well, let me make a couple of statements here. One is, this commissioner has no understanding of the First Amendment or private property rights. This same commissioner assailed a constituent and a business owner in Bradley County, threatening to have this individual arrested and or sued because of a sign that was on their private property. It's a First Amendment issue right there. Anyone that wants to see proof of that, I have an extended text discussion back and forth. Why would a commissioner support another commissioner who's shown not to be trustworthy, not to be honest, and doesn't even respect First Amendment or private property rights? I was appalled at what I heard, absolutely appalled at that. You know, suck it up, Buttercup, you lost. You know what? You lost, in my opinion, because you voted for a tax increase that 80% of your constituents were against. Some of you voted for it and didn't lose, but you were close. You were real close. You know, so I just think it's, you know, it's ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Anyone else want to speak for the commission? Yes, Ms. Wilson.
Fourth District. First, I have a question in regard to the septic system, and I know that you've addressed part of it, but it concerned me anyway, and I'd like to continue with that. Can you give me a percentage of the systems that have failed due to the lack of maintenance by the owners, and the percentage of the systems that failed due to ground that never perked? And I think that one of the commissioners did address this or question this at one point. And I know that that's not on the table at this point, but it is something that will continue to be happening in this county, and I think it needs to be questioned. Secondly, who determines whether or not a builder contractor may develop an area for housing? What is the criteria for whether or not the area can be developed for housing and whether or not the soil will sustain a septic system? I don't know, I'd like to understand that. Thirdly, we have the taxpayers expressed our disapproval of this commission spending the ARP money from the beginning. Now you want to take our hard-earned money, tax money, and give it to the contractor builders to either fix problems that were brought on by the owners of the properties or because the planning commission allow the development of properties that could not sustain a housing development. And I would like that explained. And maybe it's total ignorance on my part, but those are questions that have popped up for me in all of this. Lastly, unfortunately the mayor is not here. I believe, and I'll say this to the mayor because he will probably listen to this, you have been, and I will use the word appointed, to do great things for the county for the next 4 years. Whether or not that takes place will depend on you listening to the voice of the Lord. Several of you will not be returning to your positions. It may very well be God's intentions. I think that was said. Those given another chance will now have the opportunity to stand up for what is right for the people of the community. The choice sits on your shoulders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anyone else want to speak before the commission? Mr. Peck?
I just wanted to answer that real quick. A real quick explanation. So TDEC just sent us a list of all failures. They didn't separate why they had a failure, the septic tank failure. So later, when this money is spent or sent out, they will vet those and see what's owner failures, what's this failure, what's that kind of failure, so on and so on. But a failure is a failure in the long end. Also, developers have to submit soil maps before they can develop property if it's in the county and they're going to go on septic systems. So they have to do soil maps before they're approved for septic systems. Most of the systems, issues, and failures that we're having now are over 30 and 40 years old. They're mainly. There are a few exceptions, but most of those subdivisions they predate any kind of ordinances or any kind of anything that we ever had, codes, you name it, it predates it. So that's what we're dealing with, are issues that we address now, and we have codes in place and soil map requirements for developers. So this money is not going to developers or builders either. I know that's a big misconception out there, and that may be why I was voted off and why Dennis was voted off, because of the misinformation out there. But developers pay for their own sewer systems and their own septic systems. We don't ever get handouts, and this money won't go to developers either. They will still have to develop their infrastructure. They will still have to pay for it out of their pocket, just as we do today. I can talk to you more in depth about that later. I just want to give you a brief synopsis of, tried to answer all your questions quickly.
I appreciate that. There was an assumption on my part. It was a genuine question that came up in my mind of why we have all this problem.
Mm-hmm.
If the ground is not perking, then why are they allowed to build there and then put a septic system in?
Yeah, they don't now. You can't get a permit if it doesn't.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Anderson.
Could I be recognized? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to respond to that too also. Most of your developments, planned residential developments, happen in the city. Speaking as a developer, and I'm a proud developer in this county, I've been in here for 40 years. It's not feasible for myself or many other developers to even develop in the county because it's not feasible, affordable. What land costs nowadays, it's not, we would basically go bankrupt if we developed in the county. So that's a huge problem for the county commission and the new county commission. Is that a problem that they'd like to address? Because that's the sentiment of developers in this county. We will not develop in the county because it's not feasible. We have to have sewer. So I hope that helps.
Mr. Thompson.
Something I really don't understand. If I go buy a house, if a house is built, I know the developer has to pay for that, and for the septic tank or sewer or whatever. But if I go buy that house, then I pay for it. Am I correct? I pay for it. The developer don't pay for it, I pay for it. If I buy that house. Don't we need to clear that up a little bit?
Are you addressing that to me?
Anybody, yeah, I won't think.
I don't understand your question.
Well, you said, we have to put the septic tanks in, we have to pay for it and all this, but you get reimbursed for that when you sell the house. I mean, taxpayers end up paying for it anyway. If I go buy a house, I'm a taxpayer, I gotta pay for the house, and I gotta pay for the septic tank, and I gotta pay for sewer, and whatever. So that's just something I don't understand when you say, well, we got to pay for it. I know you got to pay for it up front. You have to pay for the house up front. But I just, at the end, well, if I'm buying a house, I pay for it.
Okay, moving into announcements. I failed to mention, we had some newly elected commissioners here, Commissioner Rogers and I missed Mr. Collins. please extend my apologies to him.
Yeah,
I meant
back
to,
to work.
got in conversation. And then obviously, board member Amanda Lee, chairperson Amanda Lee, who also was reelected as well. So, all right, announcements. Next meeting will be Monday, the 23rd, 7 o'clock here at the courthouse. Upcoming events, Paws and Pints, May 21st at 6:30 at the Museum Center at 5 Points. The Landfill Committee, May 23rd at 6 o'clock here in the Commission Room. And Saturday, May 21st, celebration of Oakville history at the Oakville Park from 4 to 7. Is that correct? All right. Motion to adjourn.